The first thing Daniel ever learned about his father was that silence could be louder than shouting. It filled the house in the early mornings while the sky was still gray and undecided. It sat at the dining table between untouched coffee and folded newspapers. It followed his father out the door every day before sunrise, clinging to the worn fabric of his jacket like a second skin. Daniel used to think silence meant absence. His father, Ernesto Villanueva, was not an unkind man. He simply existed in a world of few words. His hands spoke more than his mouth ever did, rough hands, lined with thin scars, nails permanently darkened by engine grease from years working at a small repair shop at the edge of town. When Daniel was a boy, he would sit by the window and watch his father walk down the dusty road at dawn. The sound of his boots against gravel was steady, predictable, reliable, but never warm. At school, Daniel envied other boys. Their fathers cheered loudly during basketball games. They laughed with wide mouths and open arms. They clapped shoulders and ruffled hair. Ernesto stood at the back of the court during Daniel's first championship game. He didn't shout. He didn't wave, he just watched, and when Daniel scored the winning point, when the crowd erupted and teammates lifted him into the air, Daniel's eyes searched for one thing, a smile, but his father only nodded once, one firm nod. That night, Daniel lay in bed staring at the ceiling, the victory medal resting heavy against his chest. He imagined what it would feel like to hear the words, "I'm proud of you, son." They never came. Years passed like turning pages. Daniel grew taller. His voice deepened. His dreams expanded beyond the small town that seemed to shrink each year. He earned a scholarship to a university in the city, something no one in their family had ever done. The night he received the acceptance letter, his mother cried into her apron. His father read the letter twice. Folded it carefully. Placed it back into the envelope. "You should go," Ernesto said. 3 words. It was the longest sentence Daniel could remember him speaking in weeks, but there was no embrace. No celebration dinner. No fireworks of emotion, just silence again. Daniel mistook that silence for indifference. City life changed him, new friends. New ideas. New freedoms. Phone calls home became shorter. Visits became rare. Every time he returned, his father looked older. The lines on Ernesto's face deepened like cracks in drying earth. His shoulders curved slightly forward. His hands trembled faintly when he thought no one was watching. But Daniel was too busy building a future to notice the quiet unraveling of the man who had built his. During his final year of university, Daniel received a job offer from a prestigious firm overseas. It was everything he had worked for. When he told his parents over dinner, his mother's smile faltered. His father remained still. "That's far," Ernesto said. "It's an opportunity," Daniel replied. Sharper than he intended, Ernesto nodded. Of course he did. Daniel mistook that nod for dismissal. That night, frustration boiled over. "Why can't you ever just say what you feel?" Daniel demanded. "Do you even care that I'm leaving?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Ernesto's jaw tightened. His eyes shifted toward the window. "I care," he said quietly. But Daniel wanted more than quiet, he wanted noise. Emotion. A father who fought to keep him close. Instead, he got silence, and so he left. Years rolled forward. Daniel built a successful career abroad. He wore tailored suits now. His hands were soft. His life was efficient and polished, but sometimes, in the quiet of his high-rise apartment, he would think of early mornings and gravel roads. Then he would push the memory away, until the phone call came. His mother's voice trembled through the line. your father collapsed at work. The world narrowed to a single point. Daniel flew home the next morning. The hospital smelled of antiseptic and something metallic beneath it. Machines hummed in steady rhythm. His father lay in the bed, smaller than Daniel remembered, fragile. The strong shoulders that once carried heavy engines now struggled beneath a thin blanket. Ernesto opened his eyes when Daniel stepped closer. For a moment, they simply looked at each other, so many years contained in one gaze. "You came," Ernesto whispered. Daniel swallowed hard. "Of course I did." There was something in his father's eyes then, not weakness, relief. Ernesto was discharged after a week. The doctor spoke of exhaustion, of untreated high blood pressure, of stress. Daniel stayed longer than he planned. One afternoon, while searching for insurance papers, Daniel opened the old wooden cabinet in his parents' bedroom. Inside, he found a small metal box. Curiosity nudged him. He opened it. Inside were receipts, stacks of them, university tuition payments, dormitory fees, textbook purchases, airline tickets. Every single payment had been made in full. Beneath the receipts was an old watch, the one Ernesto had worn every day since Daniel could remember. It had stopped ticking. Underneath it lay something else, letters, dozens of them, all addressed to Daniel, none of them sent. His hands trembled as he unfolded the first one. "Son, I do not know how to say these things when you are in front of me." Daniel's vision blurred. Each letter told a story. Of pride when Daniel won his first medal, of fear the night he left for the city, of secret overtime shifts to cover tuition, of selling the old family land to pay for Daniel's overseas ticket, of staying awake at night wondering if his son had eaten well. Page after page of love, unspoken, unmailed, unheard. Tears fell freely now. All those years, Daniel had mistaken silence for emptiness, but silence had been sacrifice. That evening, Daniel sat beside his father on the porch. The sky burned orange as the sun dipped low. "I found the letters," Daniel said softly. Ernesto stiffened. "You weren't supposed to. Why didn't you send them?" His father stared at his worn hands. "I didn't want you to feel guilty," he said. "You needed to fly. If you looked back too much, you might not have gone far." The words settled heavy and warm in Daniel's chest. "All this time," Daniel whispered, "I thought you didn't care." Ernesto looked at him then, truly looked at him. "I cared enough to stay quiet," he replied. Silence again, but this time, it felt different, it felt full. Daniel reached for his father's hand. For the first time in his life, he noticed how rough it was, how much it had endured. "I'm proud to be your son," Daniel said. Ernesto's eyes shimmered, and finally, he smiled. It was small, but it was everything. Weeks later, Daniel declined the promotion overseas. He found work closer to home, not because he owed his father, but because he understood him now. Every morning, he would sit with Ernesto on the porch. They did not speak much. They didn't need to. Sometimes love does not arrive in grand speeches or dramatic gestures. Sometimes it wakes before dawn. Sometimes it works overtime without complaint. Sometimes it sells land and keeps receipts. Sometimes it writes letters it never sends. And sometimes, if you are lucky, you learn to hear it before it's too late. On the day Ernesto's old watch began ticking again, after Daniel had it repaired, they sat together listening to its steady rhythm. Time, once misunderstood, now felt like a gift. The silence between them was no longer empty, it was sacred, and somewhere in that quiet, Daniel finally understood. The loudest love he had ever known had been whispered all along.